NuPhy has slowly been making a name for itself as a maker of keyboards that give users lots of options. Their first truly custom keyboard was the Gem 80, which offers multiple plate options and even multiple mounting types. Well, now NuPhy has brought that same level of customization to a low-profile keyboard, and they didn't just insert some of the same parts into one of their existing Air Series keyboards. They went all out for a full metal, low-profile keyboard in the Nos75. Let's take a closer look and see if it's worth the premium price tag. Before we dive in, I want to mention that NuPhy sent me the Nos75 for the purpose of testing and reviewing it. However, I also ordered one for myself to keep, so that means I'll be giving one of these away. Check the comments for details on the giveaway, and sorry if you're watching this several months later and you missed it, but subscribe if you want to know about future giveaways. I was not paid to make this video, and NuPhy has no input on my review. I do have an affiliate link in the description for you if you're interested in picking up the Nos75 and you'd like to support this channel. There is a lot that makes the Nos75 different from other NuPhy releases. I don't think NuPhy has actually even made all their final decisions about this product, so it could have easily been released on Kickstarter before producing it, but they decided to release the Nos75 without a couple of options that they normally would include. Most significantly, there is no wireless option, at least not yet. If you read through a blog post about the development of the Nos75 on NuPhy's site, you'll find that there were some significant delays in the process of bringing this keyboard to life. And initially, they planned to release it with more switch options and color options. They even had renderings for the color options, but they decided to trim back on those options and get some market feedback on it before producing all of them. So we have a wired-only PCB, one case color, and one switch option, but that doesn't mean the Nos75 only has one configuration, and it definitely doesn't mean this is not an interesting keyboard. So before I just reveal all the secrets here, let's do our usual rundown of features and specs. We'll do a stock sound test with the default plate and mount configuration the way it comes, and then we'll talk about pros and cons, and we'll also talk about all of the other configuration options that you currently have. The Nos75 is a 75% low-profile keyboard with 81 keys and an ANSI layout. There is currently no ISO layout available. It is sold as a bare-bones keyboard without the keycaps and switches installed. The build is CNC aluminum for the case top and bottom, and there is an optional mirror-finished steel PVD accent weight. There's currently one color option, which is silver. The dimensions are 332.5 by 142.3 millimeters with a front height of 16 millimeters and a rear height of 25.7 millimeters. The weight is 1,239 grams or 2.75 pounds without the optional weight. The typing angle is 5 degrees and there are no adjustable feet. Connectivity is USB-C wired only with 1000 Hz polling. The lighting includes full per-key south-facing RGB with 39 modes and 2 LED side lights. The side lights include indicators for the connection status. Internal components include a hot swappable PCB with PCB-mounted low-profile stabilizers, and the included plate is FR4. There are additional optional plates that can be purchased separately, which we'll review in just a moment. There are 4 types of mounts included, which we'll go over in detail in a moment. The factory-installed mount is a silicone sock gasket mount. Sound damping includes a switch pad, foam between the PCB and plate, and foam in the case bottom. There is one switch option, which is the Gatoron low-profile 3.0 linear switch, which has 3.4 millimeters of travel and 50-gram actuation force. Keycaps are not included in the price, but NuPhy has several low-profile sets to choose from for an additional charge. The firmware is QMK with VIA compatibility for remapping and creating macros on Windows, Mac, and Linux. The Nos75 is $199 US, which includes the barebones keyboard and a set of Gatoron low-profile 3.0 switches, and the price will increase if you add keycaps, additional plates, or the optional weight. All right, now before we get into pros and cons, we're going to talk about your different configuration options, and we'll also do a couple more sound tests. To open up the Nos75, there are 4 case screws on the bottom. There are integrated force brakes for the screws, which is a nice touch. Once you have the top off, there's just one cable to detach from the PCB, and then you've got the PCB and plate assembly, which comes like a bare bones keyboard. Everything is installed except for the switches, but you do need to open it up if you want to change the mounting style or the plate or do anything with the provided foams. Included with the Nos75, you get 4 PCB mounting options. By default, it comes with the silicone socks installed on the PCB tabs, and they seat in grooves in the top and bottom of the case. And NuPhy indicates this option gives the most amount of flex. Next, we have silicone button or beans, and they provide 2 hardness levels. These are inserted into the little cutouts on the PCB. And then we have the silicone sleeve, which slides over the entire tab on the PCB and rests on the case. And lastly, we have the most firm option, that's the screw-in mount, which also has silicone caps to prevent any metal-on-metal sound issues from the screws. So all of those options come in the box at no extra charge. I've tested all of them and I agree that the silicone socks offer the most flex, but the softer set of beans also has a fairly soft and flexible feel. However, this is still a low-profile keyboard, so there's not a ton of room in the case for the PCB and plate assembly to move up and down, so don't expect tons of flex here. Now, let's talk about the options that have an additional cost. The Nos75 comes with an FR4 plate installed like a bare bones model by default, but you can add 3 other plate materials: polycarbonate, POM, carbon fiber, and aluminum for $15 each. Now, the only one I don't have on hand to actually test is the carbon fiber plate, but here's a quick sound test of all the others with the silicone sock mount and all of the case foam. Now there is also an optional soldered PCB you can add on if you prefer to solder your switches, and there's only one switch option at the moment, so you won't really be missing much if you do solder them. Now the last option for customizing your Nos75, at least for now, is the stainless steel PVD weight with a mirror blue finish, which costs an extra $49. I have to say, I think pictures don't really do this weight justice. I don't even think my cameras are doing the weight justice. I've had several keyboards that have an accent weight in the bottom, but none have been this huge. This is a large size weight for the bottom of the case. It's like the whole bottom of the case, and it looks really nice in person. Okay, now let's talk about some pros and cons for the Nos75. First up, I have to give it to NuPhy on the build quality here. It is really, really nice. The aluminum has some great curves and it's all very smooth. Overall, the quality of everything here is very good, which I would expect for the price. Now, I also like that they did something interesting here as far as low-profile keyboards go when it comes to the design. A lot of low-profile keyboards follow the design principles of the Air series, which is that they aim to be portable. So naturally, the cases tend to be smaller, they're made from lighter weight materials, and that's not a bad thing, but what if you wanted a keyboard that has the look and feel of a high-profile keyboard, but with low-profile keycaps and switches? Well, that's exactly what the Nos75 delivers. The case has more of a form factor like a high-profile keyboard. It's not trying to be the thinnest or the smallest. But then you have the low-profile keycaps and switches, though these switches have as much travel as some regular profile switches, but I just really like what they did here because it feels different. However, I do feel at the same time that some people might think that the purpose of low-profile keyboards is to be portable, which this is definitely not. It's way too heavy to carry around, especially with that added weight. But for me, their design choices are positive here, so I could have put this in the neutral category because design is always very subjective, but you know, I'm sticking with it being a pro. All right, now let's talk about those switches. The new low-profile 3.0 switches have both a pro and a con. Let's talk about the pro. Overall, they are nice. They have a good amount of travel for low-profile switches. They have a nice, slightly heavier feel than any of the low-profile switches that NuPhy has used before in the Air series, which I count as a positive because they're not heavy. They don't feel like they're too heavy, but they feel like just a nice level of weight and resistance. They also result in a very pleasing sound, at least in my opinion, but you be the judge of that. Let me know in the comments what you think of the sound with these new switches. They also have a new pin arrangement that matches standard high-profile keyboard switches, and that means the PCB can use sockets that actually accept high-profile switches, which is pretty cool. But before you get any ideas here, yes, technically a high-profile switch will make the proper contacts with the PCB. I tested it, and it works. But the PCB and plate assembly here is not the same depth as a high-profile keyboard, so the switches won't actually seat properly. Basically, the plate won't engage the clips to hold them in place, so they won't be stable. They'll just come right out. So yeah, it's kind of neat that you could do that, but you can't actually really use them in a practical sense. Now, I'm also counting the typing feel and sound here as a pro, with one small con that we will cover in just a moment. Now, rather than saying this is neutral because it's subjective, I think what NuPhy achieved here with the feel is very good for a low-profile keyboard. You can feel the difference between the gasket mount system here and the Air V2 series. The Air V2 series has a little bit of a softer typing feel than the original because of some extra sort of cushioning they put in the case, but it is still a firm typing experience. It doesn't have a ton of flex like I mentioned earlier, so it's still low profile, but I really like that you can tune it to your liking with the different mounting options, so that means there's some combination here that's going to fit for most people. And of course, the QMK firmware is a pro. You can customize the mapping and add macros on Windows, Mac, and Linux. There are pre-programmed Mac and Windows layouts here that you can toggle with a key command, and you've got several layers available, so that is always a pro. All right, let's move on and talk about some things that do fall in the neutral category, and possibly for different reasons than usual. The case color and the wired-only connectivity I'm putting in this neutral category. Now, this is here for a couple reasons. Not everyone needs or wants wireless connectivity, and custom mechanical keyboards don't always offer wireless connectivity. Some are just wired only. However, some people won't want the Nos75 because of that, at least for now. And the same thing goes for the single case color. It's silver for now until NuPhy decides whether they're going to actually release the additional case color options. Another case color would certainly be welcome. Now, one last thing in the neutral category is about the keycap selection. The case of this keyboard I would call elegant in terms of the design. It's simple, but it's also unique, and it's very high quality. Out of the available keycaps, the set that I have on both of these is the Maya imprint set, which does have stylized keycaps with symbols, but it also comes with traditional legends, as you can see. So I think out of all of what's available currently, this is the most subtle looking way to go. The quality of these is good. I don't have any complaints about the legends or the feel or overall just the quality. I do think that we could have used a set designed for this keyboard maybe a little bit more specifically. And also, by the way, none of the options that are listed there are shined through. NuPhy does sell low profile shine through keycaps, which can take more advantage of the backlighting. However, the backlighting here is south facing, not north facing. So if you do want to go with shine through keycaps, make sure that the legends are not in the top portion of the keycap, because these south facing lights won't really illuminate legends that are high up on the keycap. All right, let's talk about a few cons for the Nos75. First up, there is a little bit of a pingy sound in the top of the case. Now, thankfully, general typing doesn't cause a problem. It doesn't actually make any sound. But if you're going to hit one of your F keys, for example, or if you just graze the frame a little bit, especially up here where this thin part is between your F keys and your main alpha key area, there is this high-pitched ping sound that is audible even from a slight distance. Now, I personally think NuPhy missed a little bit of an opportunity here to manufacture a very, very thin strip of foam on the underside of the top of the case here to try and absorb those vibrations. You could certainly try to cut yourself a very thin strip of weather seal and stick it under there and try and reduce that. Now, let's get back to the switches. While the switches themselves are good, the con that I have to mention is something that sort of comes along with being the first one to do something. These switches are the first low-profile switches on the market, as far as I know, that have adopted the traditional pin positioning of high-profile switches. All other Gatoron low-profile switches and Kale low-profile switches used proprietary pin positioning that requires a different position for the sockets on the PCB compared to normal high-profile keyboards. That means these are the only low-profile switches that you can use with this keyboard. None of the previous NuPhy and Gatoron collaboration low-profile switches are going to work. So if you wanted to put your existing Cowberry or Moss switches in here, you can't. Now, one more thing to note about the switches. Again, while these are good, they're not yet available in a tactile option. So if you don't like linear switches, you're kind of out of luck here since there are no other compatible switches, at least not yet. All right, the only other con here I have is a little nitpicky, and it applies to the polycarbonate plates. I noticed with these plates that the lighting, the backlighting, creates a couple of sort of hot spots where the light is bouncing off of the lighter colored plates. The FR4 plate absorbs that light, so it doesn't create the same effect. It's not super noticeable, but when you're looking down at the keyboard, there's just a couple places where the light looks much brighter than the rest of the keyboard, and especially if you have the lighting on the highest setting. So if you don't use the backlighting, obviously you won't notice it, and you may not even notice it that much if you do use the backlighting, but I just wanted to mention it because it is a difference between the lighter colored plates and the FR4 plate. All right, so now we have the question, is it worth the $200 price tag? Well, if we consider a direct competitor here, the low-free Flow, although, you know, it's not really a direct competitor because it's still designed to be a portable keyboard, and this is really not. But anyway, the Flow is $169. It can occasionally be found for a little less than that on a discount, but that's the price point of the Flow. The build quality of the Nos75 is decidedly better. It's on par with custom keyboards in terms of the density and the quality of the machining. It feels much more solid than the low-free Flow. However, the Flow does offer wireless connectivity, albeit only Bluetooth. So in my opinion, the price of the Nos75, it's borderline. I personally think that if NuPhy were to make a wireless version with Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz, that a $200 price point would be reasonable for this level of quality. But I think the wired-only version might be more fitting with a price a little bit less than $200, at least when you consider the pricing of other keyboards that have similar quality and features. So the way that I would summarize the Nos75 is that if you feel that it's exactly what you're looking for, then it's worth it. But if you're feeling like you really would be missing wireless connectivity, or if the limited color options and switch options aren't really fitting your preferences, then the price is a bit of a stretch. For me personally, I am glad that I ordered one to keep for myself because it offers something that I haven't seen in any other low-profile keyboards. It's a solid custom keyboard feel combined with a low-profile experience. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the Nos75. Let me know if you do order one for yourself. Let me know how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel, and while you're here, why don't you check out one of these videos? I'm sure you'll like it. Thanks everybody. See you next time.